Thank you all for coming. I guess everybody knows why we're here today. I want to kind of start off by thanking the committee. I appreciate you guys coming together. I know this is kind of sometimes short notice, but I do appreciate the work you're doing and respect the participation that you guys put forth in the committee. I want to thank staff, Pat and Shanna, Alexa, Rachel, and Brooke. You guys are amazing to work with. I really do appreciate you guys putting this together on short notice, and all of you that came here to participate in this today. We have a facilitator today, Christina Weaver. She's amazing. It's a little bit different format you've seen before, but I ask you to trust the process. This is a process what we're going to do now, utilize and build a foundation on how to move forward with fisheries. We're trying this with crab now for kind of a long-term picture as well on what a management plan would look like. I've talked with Chief Gear several times on, you know, hey, we got to build a plan, and the best way to start off with is you guys participating early and start working towards that goal. Now, I know there's a lot of hoopla, it's a lot of sensitive topics. I know Mr. Jenkins is here today. We talk sensitive topics all the time, and I appreciate his input. It's okay to talk about the things some people might not agree on. It's not okay to be uncivil. So we'll be civil, trust the process, go through the process, make sure everybody has their time to be heard, and everybody feels comfortable participating in the process. This is what CMAC and all our committees are supposed to look like. Not more board members here than anybody else, or more committee members. This is what it's supposed to look like. And this is y'all's time to have participation from every point of view and to respect each other. She's gonna try to keep you on topic. I've told her she's got a tall task in front of her tonight, but I do appreciate it. I want to give a shout out to probably the longest standing member. He showed up today, Mr. Nixon. Thank you. It's been 35 or so years he's been on this committee, so he's seen where we've been, where we're going, and where we went back to, and vice versa. So I appreciate everyone. I'm gonna be in and out here this afternoon, available for questions. I'm very interested and excited about this process. If there's a need for a chair today, I want to make sure we put this. Our chairman, Mr. Tanker, couldn't make it tonight. Chris Moore will be your chair if there's a need for a chair. He's very well versed in the Robert's rules. He's good to go. So, but I appreciate everything. You guys go to work, and if there's anything you need from me, I'll be around. Thanks,
Thank you so much. Well, hi everyone. I'm just thrilled to be here. Let me introduce myself, and then I'd love to have brief introductions around the table. I know that you all know each other, but I'm very excited to get to know you over the next couple hours. My name is Christina Weaver. I am a facilitator, public policy mediator, and have been doing this work in the environmental field in Virginia since around 2009. Formerly worked with the University of Virginia's Institute for Environmental Negotiation, sometimes known as IEN, that has about a 40-year history of really just trying to ensure that when there's an issue around which there needs to be dialogue around environmental issues in Virginia, that those processes are inclusive, and that if and when there's conflict, there's a chance for all voices to really be heard in working towards solutions. So I'm really here today as a resource. I have sketched out a process that I can offer you all that really is aimed at making sure that all voices get to be heard today, and that you all are able to focus on the topic at hand, and just hope to be of support. So if at any point you feel like it's not supporting you, please know that I'm very comfortable with adapting as well. So really glad to be here. I also want to just welcome members of the public who come and say that I really look forward to also hearing your voices as a facilitator of this meeting, that we'll have time for a public comment at the end of the meeting, and we'll also have a couple other ways that we can capture your comments and perspectives over the course of the meeting. We are going to try to have a 2-hour meeting, and be flexible as needed, especially with the public comment period. But I think one of the hopefully benefits of having a facilitator is trying to keep it within that time frame. So I'll say more about the process. Let me first ask before we do the go round. I know this meeting is being live streamed in terms of the audio, so that more members of the public can listen. They're not able to speak back to the meeting, but they're able to listen. Is the audio capture good enough without the mics, or do we need to of the guidelines for tonight then will be, I'll be moving around a lot and I'll be bringing microphones to folks as they're speaking. So again, Christina Weaver, I'm a facilitator, very glad to be here. And what I'd love is if folks could just share their name, their affiliation, and if you are a waterman, what you have fished or what you are fishing. And we can start with you, Mr. Rice.
Corey Rice, Reedville, Virginia, and I'm a full-time waterman, mostly crabs and oysters.
Marshall Cox, Senior, Eastern Shore. You want me to mention everything I've always done?
Mention a little taste of it for the
Crab
program.
dredging, cod dredging, toad podding, climbing, oyster, fish trapping, gill netting, just about everything.
Wonderful, thank you.
Wayne Morris, Warsaw, Virginia. I'm a full-time waterman. Fish peeler traps, peeler pots, crab pots, pound nets, gill nets, a little bit of everything.
Wonderful, thank you, welcome.
Ty Burns, full-time waterman, pretty much been crabbing and oystering for the last 9 years.
I'm Peter Nixon, I'm a full-time waterman, and I've done just about everything you do on this bay, but all I do is hard crab pot now.
Chris Moore, I'm the Executive Director of Chesapeake Bay Foundation here in Virginia.
J.C. Hudgens, and I'm representing the Virginia Watermen's Association. I'm a full-time waterman, oyster and crab pot and gill net.
Spencer Headley from Reedville, Virginia. Crab pot, oyster, gill net, shrimp fishery, crab drudge, everything except pound netting and clamming.
Tom Powers from Pocosa, Virginia. I'm a recreational representative on this committee and have been for about 25 years.
Nathan Reynolds, Cape Charles, Virginia. You could consider me a part-time waterman, but I've been on the water my whole life as far as every type of fishery other than Holstein and I think horn dogging. So I'm happy about the horn dogging. I don't want to ever participate now.
Mark Sanford, commercial fisherman, pretty much done everything, haul seine, crab pot, grow oysters, etc.
Ken Diggs, just crab pot and peeler pot.
And are folks okay with a first name basis as we work together tonight? Great. And Ken, you arrived a little bit late. Just to say, you have a facilitator for this meeting. Recognize it's a little bit of a different format. I will say I'm developing a real passion for working with fisheries. In the last year, I was able to work on a workshop around menhaden and horseshoe crab. So I'm excited to learn from you all, even though I'm not, of course, a subject matter expert. So let's go over the purpose first of this meeting. And very shortly, we're going to get into a brief presentation and then just dialogue among you all for the rest of the meeting.
Can I say something before you start?
Absolutely.
I've been on this committee for 37 years, and this is the first time we've ever needed a referee. Where's your whistle?
I'm honored that I'm the first referee. Well, speaking of that, maybe we'll go first to requests for the meeting. So I always like to offer the requests of just really sharing the airtime, so being mindful of how much you're speaking relative to others. One of my goals for the meeting is that all the voices really are included in this meeting, and that we have plenty of time to hear from the public as well towards the end. So to help facilitate me keeping a queue, I'm pretty casual, I'm happy to be adaptive, and sometimes we're gonna just be in dialogue. But we're gonna try to keep a queue just to keep focused. And one of the best ways to do that is just to put your name tag up when you know you wanna speak on a topic. If you're making a really quick comment back to somebody else, you can signal that to me and we'll make it work. Sometimes if there's a lot of dialogue, I'll lose the queue a little bit. You can keep me on track, but I will do my best to keep the queue. And then of course, speaking from your own experience. Other requests to make this a productive meeting, things that have worked well for this group in the past? Nope, okay. There you go. Okay, so I've been asked to support both this meeting and your August meeting. And in thinking about the topic at hand and the dialogue that you all need to happen, as I understand it, I've articulated 3 goals for today. Okay, so really the core purpose of today is to consider the various possible pathways for implementing the winter dredge fishery decision. So really, what does that mean? What would that look like? And the idea is that hopefully by the end of the August meeting, this group will have achieved some recommendations, potentially even consensus-based recommendations. And in the August meeting, I'll be offering a consensus building tool that might be useful if you want to adopt it, to see which recommendations can you achieve common ground on. But recommendations and ideas for what implementing this decision would look like, and what the implications might be. So that's kind of the core substance of the meeting. In service of that substance, we want to make sure that there's really shared knowledge of the issues, of the science, of the implications of the different kind of pathways to implementation. And to support that, we're going to have just a brief 20-minute presentation from Alexa in the back with the crab shirt. And during that presentation, which is going to happen shortly, I want to encourage folks to jot down their questions and ideas. Following that presentation, we're going to do something a little bit different than what you might be used to with presentation and Q&A. We're actually going to give you a couple minutes to really jot down what clarifying questions do I have about what was just presented, what concerns do I have, also what more information do I need to be able to take what I know, what I just learned from this presentation, and work towards building recommendations. And then we're going to break you into small groups just for about 15 minutes with folks who have fished similarly in terms of have you done dredge fishing before, have you not, or are you not a waterman? We're going to break into groups briefly. Then we're going to come back and the rest of the meeting is going to be open dialogue. Okay, so the purpose of doing it that way is to really digest the information in this presentation and kind of do some pre-thinking in the small groups so that we can have a really productive large group discussion. Again, ensuring that there's inclusion of all voices. So that's roughly the process. Any questions about process before we move into the presentation? Yes?
What's our goal?
What's your goal? Thank you. So the goal, as I understand it, is by the end of the August meeting that there will be some, and the goal is going to be also covered somewhat in the presentation, but that there will be an indication of whether there are recommendations forward about how to implement this decision. And as I understand it, it's rather open in terms of what that could mean. So these 2 meetings are really the chance to kind of grapple with what implementation could look like. There are different pathways that are going to be kind of introduced in the presentation, but we don't have to do it all today. So today the goal is surfacing your questions, surfacing your information needs and your ideas and concerns, and then building on that in the second meeting. Is that helpful? Any other questions? Okay, so to support kind of thinking during the presentation, could you pass this down and these pens down? We just have essentially some scrap paper, but with some questions pre-populated, just to help you think about what you're going to learn in this presentation, and then afterwards we're going to take 5-10 minutes to jot down where you're at. So with that, I can hand them, you have your own mic there. Okay, I'm going to turn this off, and we're going to have about a 20-minute presentation.
All right, thank you, Christina. Tom, you managed to anticipate my first slide. We're going to go over some of the goals for the meeting. For today, we want to provide an opportunity for inclusive input on future crab fisheries for committee members and for the public. We want to learn what information the committee needs the public needs, and what VMRC needs to make recommendations. So what information would you like to see from us in order to make your recommendations? And what information do you think we need from you, our recommendations? And then the goals for our next meeting, which based on your availability given at the doodle poll, will be August 20th, 4 p.m., same place. Those goals will be to provide recommendations on how to implement a crab dredge fishery and to provide recommendations for the future of a winter crab fishery. And we'll kind of get into that a little more. So at the June 2024 Commission meeting, the Commission repealed 4 VAC 20-1140 prohibition of crab dredging in Virginia waters. So the regulation prohibiting crab dredging is not in effect, which means we default to what is currently in code, that the dredge season opens December 1st. However, because the regulations previously providing a framework for the crab dredge were repealed, we don't have anything in place other than what's in code. So we kind of have to work through that with this process. So tonight, July 29th, CMAQ is going to lay the groundwork for developing winter fishery recommendations. On August 20th, you're going to develop those recommendations. The Commission is going to hear them on September 24th. We'll be doing a request for public hearing. That's something we used to do at Commission meetings. We haven't in a bit, but because this is such a large issue, and we know there's a lot of public concern with it, we want to provide another avenue for people to provide their feedback. So we're going to go before the Commission and say, here are some options for a regulation you'll vote on in October. And the Commission will say, you know, yes, we want to hear this in October. Like I said, we will have an opportunity for the public to speak at that meeting. And then on October 25th, the Commission will vote on a new dredge regulation. So staff sees 3 possibilities coming out of this fall process. The VMRC adopts regulation with a dredge fishery framework and opens the 2024-2025 winter dredge fishery. VMRC adopts a regulation with the dredge fishery framework but closes the 2024-2025 season. Or the VMRC adopts regulation with dredge fishery framework, closes the 2024-2025 season, but extends winter dates for a crab pot fishery. And with these options in mind, I'm going to be presenting data staff feel may be relevant for the committee and the public to consider when making their recommendations to us. So something to keep in mind with these management possibilities, adopting a new dredging regulation means the Commission can still decide annually whether to open the dredge fishery, but if they do, the management structure will already be in place. We won't be in the situation we are this year where we don't have anything in place. Opening the dredge fishery, we'll have to consider reductions in effort by other sectors to offset increases in harvest, what we refer to as conservation equivalency. Extending the crab pot fishery, depending on harvest amounts, we may need to reduce bushel limits elsewhere to offset the increase in harvest through conservation equivalency. That's something, again, we would be discussing. So, how we got here. In 2008, a blue crab fishery resource disaster was declared, and the jurisdictions were required to take a 34% reduction in effort. Effort reductions taken in 2008 included closing the winter dredge fishery, reducing individual pot limits, increasing colorings, shortening the female harvest season, and increasing minimum size limit for peeler crabs. And the Commission has voted to close the dredge fishery every year since until 2024. So I've got a graph up here of adult female abundance, which is one of the biological reference points scientists and managers consider for the species. You'll see a black bar. That represents 2008. So Before 2008, you can see we were pretty close to the threshold, occasionally below, the threshold under which the crab population would be considered overfished. After 2008, we've been doing much better. We've been, most years, well above the threshold. A few years at or above the target we're managing towards. We haven't been consistently at or above the target, which we'd like to be. That's something, as we've mentioned before, we'll be looking into with the stock assessment process. Along those same lines, we have the female exploitation rate, or what percentage of crabs present in the bay at the beginning of the year are then taken by that year's fishery. Prior to 2008, there was some overfishing. We were at or above that red line of the threshold, but pretty much ever since 2008, we've been at or below the target. So here are some reasons that were given in a 2010 staff evaluation for reasons to close the dredge fishery. The dredge fishery has the highest ratio of male to female crabs harvested, and those mature females will spawn in spring or summer, many for the first time. There's a high degree of wastage. Value of the product is lower than by other gears. There's the fewest fishermen involved. There's strong public support against. Some processors at the time were saying they were no longer interested in dredge product, and high overhead costs. While some of these concerns remain valid, others are no longer valid or can be mitigated. Some processors have said they are interested in the fishery to provide Virginia crabs year-round, and the high degree of wastage can be mitigated by banning divers and locating the dredge fishery over muddier bottom, as we saw in this 2013 dredge mortality study from VIMS, done in part with the industry. So 4 commercial vessels were chosen from a volunteer pool. Each carried VMRC and VIMS observers, and the vessels reported the number of bushels and the discard mortality. So image on the right is the total number of crabs per tow taken over sand and in mud, and that's with divers and without divers, where divers are something like a foil that forces it deeper into the sediment. Importantly is the graph on the right that shows the percent of damaged crabs per tow. In sand, the mortality was 28% with divers, 20% without. And in mud, it was only 4% mortality with divers, 0.1% without. So that was why we said the high degree of wastage can be mitigated. So based on that, in 2013, staff developed a dredge fishery plan. In 2012, the commission created a blue crab advisory panel. Amongst their goals were to develop recommendations for regulations that protect the industry's ability to make year-round income. The fishery plan was put together and recommended to the commission in 2013. The commission did still vote to keep the fishery closed, but we know this is a plan that was worked on highly with all of you, with the advisory panel, with the public, so maybe a good place to start. The plan included having 37 participants. This was based on participation in the last 5 dredge seasons. A season of December 16th to February 28th. A 1.5 million pound or 37,500 bushel sector limit with a 1,000 bushel maximum for each licensee. And to enforce those limits, they would have issued licensee tags for each bushel. The plan also included conservation equivalency to offset dredge harvest. This was about the time where bushel limits went into place, and part of that discussion was bushel limits were something that could be used to compensate for that dredge harvest. And then for area, it was going to have the fishery on mud bottoms, as you can see in this graph here, this picture. So here's a map of the main stem. The green is the areas of most mud The yellow is a mud sand mix, and then the red is mostly sand. And then you can see the image on the right was the 24 a dredge fishery area. Looking at this now, we do have some concerns about shellfish grounds and leases within these boundaries that were not present in 2013. So that's something we will look to be discussing with the committee. Continuing on with the plan, whelk and horseshoe crab bycatch would have been allowed to those with valid permits. The dredges would have had a 2 dredge maximum per vessel, 8 feet maximum width, 6-inch maximum teeth length, and no divers. With a daily time limit of sunrise to sunset, and offloading had to have been finished before 3 hours after sunset. So getting into some of the data we felt relevant. Here's data on the winter crab dredge fishery from 2000 to 2008. I will note that December trips were included in the following calendar year. So for example, 2000 includes December of 1999 through March of 2000. And the graph on the right is crab dredge harvest in the red line and number of trips on the green line. You can see those track pretty well together. I know the committee had discussed earlier this year a survey that was sent out to participants. I want to present some of the results. 24 out of 45 individuals surveyed responded. 23 had initial likelihood of those who fit the 2008 limited entry criteria. 22 of those, they would put 1,000 pounds per person, 35. Those numbers got a little mixed up. 35 per sector, right? Okay. Okay. 21 out of the 23 would participate if required to have an observer on board. And when polled about startup costs, the amounts given ranged anywhere from $3,000 to $30,000. So we kind of grouped them. 8 people said it would probably cost up to $15,000, and 11 individuals said it would cost $15,000 or more to get going for the first time. And then, as we're also discussing extending our crab pot fishery, I want to present some data on winter crabbing as well. So on the right, I have highlighted in yellow all of the years where the season was extended. 2012, 2013, 2016, 2020, 2023, 2024, we've extended into December. And then in 2017, the season was extended in March to begin March 1st. So the graph on the left can kind of show the average catch per trip changes throughout the year. December, bit of a mix, mostly decreases end of year harvest, lower end of year harvesters in the upper right. November, fewer still in December, makes sense as people are switching over to oysters. And then we've also got the